Hi, my name is Debbie Prickett from Emmanuel Community United Methodist Church, and I'd like to welcome you to Once Upon a Bible Time. Today's story is called A Helper on the Journey. It was time to Zoom Grandpa, and Evie started waving even before his screen opened up. "Evie, you're wearing your bathing suit," Grandpa exclaimed when he saw her. "Are you planning to get wet today?" "Dad got out the slip and slide, and we're going to go on it after lunch. I can't wait." "Well, I know you love getting wet, Evie. Remember when you and I went on the giant water slide in the Dells?" Evie remembered. She and Grandpa carried up the big inner tube and then sat in it to slide all the way down the tunnel. Her dad took a picture as they shot out of the end, yelling and laughing. "That was a fun trip. I loved everything about it," Evie declared. "Well, maybe everything except," and her voice grew quiet. "Are you thinking about what happened on the ride home?" Grandpa asked. "Yes, that wasn't good at all." While they were on the highway, a deer had run across the road, and the car in front of them almost hit it. The car crashed into a ditch, and Evie's dad stopped their minivan on the shoulder and jumped out. As a nurse, he knew he might be able to help the driver if she had been hurt. Evie's mom called 911, and Grandpa made up stories to tell Evie and Eddie while they waited for the paramedics to arrive. It seemed like a long wait. Finally, the ambulance drove away and Evie's dad came back to the car. "The driver was scraped up and maybe has a concussion, but she's going to be okay," he told the family. "Maybe she was scared, so I'm glad I was there to help her be calm." "I'm proud that your dad was there to help that driver, Evie, aren't you?" "Well, I guess so," Evie said. "Let me tell you a story that Jesus told. It will help you understand what your dad did." Once upon a Bible time, there was a traveler. He was going from Jerusalem to Jericho. Now, this was a journey that took 2 days, so there were inns along the way to spend the night. Sometimes the path was very narrow. Sometimes it almost went straight down for a while. Sometimes you couldn't see around the next turn. "Evie, I'm making this road sound a little like the water slide we were on at the Dells. Do you remember not being able to see what was around the next turn?" "I do, Grandpa. I think I was screaming then." "Yes, Evie, you were, right in my ear." But Grandpa grew serious. This road to Jericho was dangerous. The walking path went right between the dry, rocky desert hills. And because travelers often had something to sell or trade in Jericho, robbers liked to hide in the rocks and steal from them. And guess what happened to the traveler in our story? He got attacked by robbers. The robbers tore up his coat, they grabbed the money bag tied to his belt, and took all his money. They dumped his bag out on the ground and took the food he was carrying and his extra clothes. The robbers hoped the traveler would have more valuable items with him, and when he didn't, they grew angry and started hitting him with their fists and then with sticks. Finally, the poor man collapsed on the road bleeding. The robbers left, and the man cried quietly until he became unconscious. "Oh dear, that isn't a very happy story, Grandpa. I don't like it." "Wait a minute, Evie. Someone else came down the path just about now." "Oh good, it was a priest. He had left the temple in Jerusalem where he had been worshiping God. What do you think happened?" "Well, he stopped and helped the man." "Actually, no, Evie. The priest didn't stop and help. He stayed as far as he could on the other side of the road and hurried away." "Grandpa, are you sure? A priest is like a minister, right?" For a minute, Evie thought she didn't understand. "You are correct, Evie. And the people listening to Jesus' story were just as surprised as you that the priest didn't stop to help the man. But luckily, before long, someone else appeared. He was a Levite, one of the assistants to the temple priests. He saw the man lying in the path while he was still a ways away. But instead of hurrying to help him, the Levite bowed his head and started praying out loud, pretending not to notice the man. He scooted right on by. Evie banged her hand on the desk. "What's wrong with these guys?" she cried. "Why didn't they help?" "Well, we don't know for sure. Maybe they were afraid it was a trap, that the man was only pretending, and if they stopped, he might rob them. Maybe they were afraid they wouldn't know how to help, and maybe they just felt too busy." "Well, they weren't very nice, were they? What happened to the man? Didn't anyone help him?" Well, I believe one more traveler came down the road just then. Uh-oh, it's a Samaritan. Samaritans were enemies of the Jews. Hundreds of years before, they had built their own temple to worship God, and that was something Jews just could not forgive. God said the temple should be built in Jerusalem, nowhere else. So for hundreds of years, Samaritans and Jews hated each other. Uh-oh, Evie echoed. But this Samaritan did a surprising thing, Evie. He ran to the man and knelt down on the road. He poured some wine on his cuts to kill the germs, and he cut strips of cloth from his very own coat and wrapped the cuts that were bleeding the most. Then he poured expensive oil over the bandages so they wouldn't stick. That was a good idea, Evie said. It's yucky when a Band-Aid sticks to your cut. Then the Samaritan helped the poor traveler onto his own donkey and, walking very slowly, brought him to the nearest inn. He asked the innkeeper to take care of him. He paid the innkeeper with his own money. Remember, the traveler had been robbed. The next day, the Samaritan had to leave, but he gave the innkeeper some extra money and asked him to keep the traveler until he was better. And if it costs more than this, the Samaritan said, I'll give you the extra the next time I come and stay. So the innkeeper took good care of the traveler while he was there and until he was able to travel home. After Jesus finished this story, Evie, he asked the people listening which man showed love to the traveler, the priest, the Levite, or the Samaritan. The Samaritan, Evie answered immediately. That's what the listeners thought too. And Jesus told them they should try to be like the Samaritan, helping others whenever they could. That's what my dad did after the accident, isn't it? Yes, Evie, your dad was a good Samaritan that day. I'm glad he helped, and I'm proud of him too. Just then, Evie's mom appeared. Time for lunch, Evie, and after that, the slip and slide. Bye, Grandpa. Zoom you later. Have fun in the water. Love you lots. Bye-bye. They waved and clicked off. The end. Thank you for listening.